time, the president is headed to Brussels this morning for an emergency NATO meeting. He is set to talk with allies on Thursday as the United States and its European counterparts prepare new sanctions against Russia. The Wall Street Journal reporting sanctions will affect over 300 members of the Russian government. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky is planning to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping. A spokesperson for the Ukrainian leader tweeted this out. Kyiv is hopeful Beijing will play a more prominent role in bringing this war to an end because of China's potential sway over Moscow. Joining me right now is Hayman Capital Management founder and chief investment officer Kyle Bass. Kyle, it's great to see you today. Thanks very much for being back with us.
Great to be here, Maria.
So much to talk about in this really global story, and I'm going to get to that in a moment. But let me get your take on what the U.S. has done so far in terms of sanctions, in terms of pushback on Vladimir Putin, and point out that Putin is still making almost $1 billion a day when you look at where oil prices are right now, and he's still able to transact on the SWIFT network when it comes to oil and gas transactions. So your thoughts on what we're actually doing to punish Putin for this death and destruction?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, when you look at what we've done so far, we've sanctioned some oligarchs. We're running down their jets and their yachts. They're very upset. We're sanctioning some banks in Russia, but Europe hasn't followed through on those sanctions either. And if we don't sanction Putin's energy business, again, you made the point, he makes $800 million a day exporting crude. The blood flow to Putin's tumor, the global capital that flows into Putin's war machine and funding his war machine happens on a daily basis. We are too afraid of taking 8 million barrels a day or some fraction of the 8 million off the global markets. And look, crude oil will go up $50 to $100 a barrel if we were to take the full 8 million off. And yeah, every $50 on crude means about 1.5% to U.S. GDP. So yes, it's a difficult decision, but yes, it has to be done, in my opinion. If we aren't going to send troops in to help Zelensky avoid the massacre of his people, then we're going to be fighting an economic war. If we're going to fight the economic war, Maria, we actually have to fight it. We have to cut off the money to Putin. And we have to be willing to secondarily sanction anyone that does business with the entities and individuals that we primarily sanction. Until now, we've just pressed the easy buttons, and we continue to watch this massacre. We need to get serious about this, Maria.
And there are other capital markets levers to pull, right, Kyle? I mean, let's face it. There was a bill in the Senate about, Marco Rubio's been talking about that, about removing Russian companies from all the ETFs and indexes. That was killed by the globalists in the Treasury as well as the lobbyists. House Financial Services Chair Maxine Waters released the agenda for Thursday's markup. It includes a narrow set of additional sanctions on Russia. It does not include the broader measures like delisting Russian stocks. We keep threatening we're going to take Chinese stocks off of these exchanges because they don't want to follow the audit rules. They're still there. They're still in investor portfolios, as are Russian companies. So what are investors doing? Unwittingly funding this war in Ukraine?
Yeah, it is, as you know, you and I have talked about this schism between the Defense Department, our intelligence business, and even our presidential administration and Wall Street. Wall Street can't wait to invest more in cheap Russian companies once they reopen, and they own China. Here's something interesting. When MSCI just removed Russia from its indices and the global, call it institutional investment groups, ended up having to mark down all their Russian investments to zero, we saw this. If you're an investor, you could see this coming. You know what Russia did in Chechnya. You know what Putin did in Crimea. Everyone knew he was a despotic killer, and yet Wall Street was investing in companies like Sberbank and Gazprom because they're globally cheap. If you remember, going into World War II, the U.S. actually helped Germany rebuild their war machine between World War I and World War II. We actually lent them the money. Wall Street is funding Putin's war machine, and Wall Street is funding Xi's war machine. We are one bad act away from people vaporizing their Chinese investments. They've already vaporized their Russian investments. They've already been marked down to zero. But what happens when China does help Russia militarily? China and Russia issued that joint press release on February 4th saying they are the new strategic partners in the world where no areas of cooperation are off limits. They've put it in writing for us, Maria. All global fiduciaries that are invested in China are on notice. And if they lose billions and billions and tens of billions of dollars, they should be fired because there's negative convexity to investing in despotic regimes.
Well, yeah, these Wall Street titans should be also fired for enabling the Chinese Communist Party to get stronger by allowing investors to invest in these companies. I want to play this soundbite of Joe Biden yesterday. I have a theory on where he picked up this term. I think it was on his call with Xi Jinping, but I'll tell you about that on the other side of this. Watch President Biden calling for this new world order yesterday. Watch.
Now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there, and we've got to lead it, and we've got to unite the rest of the free world in doing it.
Is he really expecting to lead this new world order, or did he just pick up this term from his phone call with Xi Jinping on Friday? We still have zero details about what went on in this phone call between the commander-in-chief and the leader of the biggest adversary to America, and that is the Chinese Communist Party. In my view, Beijing is talking about a new world order, and Beijing thinks it's going to be on top of that world order. So I don't know what Joe Biden is talking about in terms of leading a new world order. Do you?
No, I don't, but I think you're right. I think what Putin has done is accelerated a decoupling that was already happening behind the scenes. We sit today, Maria, at a very important bifurcation point, or hinge in history, where the world is going to split into two spheres of influence. One, I call it the bad guys, or the axis of evil. You're going to have China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and all of their friends. And then you're going to have the rules-based West. And those two world orders are going to govern themselves. There's a fundamental incompatibility between the bad guys and the good guys that is just being exacerbated by Putin's senseless killing. But I think when we think about the architecture of Wall Street, the architecture of global capital flows, we need to take leadership right now. We need to realize that if you read the Director of National Intelligence's recently declassified report on the threat assessment to the United States national security, he only lists 4 countries. He lists China as number 1, Russia number 2, Iran number 3, and North Korea number 4. He doesn't pull any punches. Our intelligence business knows who the threats to our security are, and Wall Street is completely detached from that report and decides that they want to invest more in Chinese stocks because they're cheap. It is insane that we're investing in the war machines of these two despots.
Well, it's even more than that. It's these major money managers who keep telling us about their ESG BS and talking about, not investing in quote unquote sin stocks like tobacco companies or oil companies, but they're perfectly fine investing in Chinese companies as the CCP makes plans to overtake the United States as the #1 superpower. How about that climate agenda, Kyle? Let's talk about that for a second, because our audience heard it here first. I reported that the Securities and Exchange Commission was about to propose a new requirement for publicly traded companies earlier in the week. They want reports on climate change risks, on emissions, and sure enough, the SEC this week came out with a report. SEC Chairman Gary Gensler's approach to other disclosure questions, it was pretty much disclose all emissions, including those from suppliers, from affiliates, as well as from customers who used your product. That's often referred to as Scope 3 emissions. That's going to create more costs for small business, for sure. Your thoughts on what the SEC wants business to do? All publicly traded companies are supposed to report all emissions and all climate change risks, even from customers.
So I don't believe that the immediate risk to the United States is climate change. I believe that climate change is real, Maria. I believe that this is a positive step by the SEC. I know it sounds like you don't, but I think over time, all this means is it's going to cost more to do business, because what we're doing is forcing, let's say, large emitters to tackle their net emissions and try to do things going forward that help the environment. I am 100% for that. I launched an environmental private equity business last year, and I think that's where our world needs to go. The pressing issue today is how do Chinese companies, we gave Chinese companies a pass in 2013. We said they don't have to submit themselves to Western audits. We were still hugging the panda back then. We were still hoping that China would westernize and become more democratic. Well, clearly, we made a bet, and it was a bad bet. And now we still have Chinese companies listed in America that don't submit to audits. When you think about being a fiduciary, and not only that, as you know, these are variable interest entities. You own a fantasy football share in a company in the Cayman Islands that has no claim to the assets in China. Imagine owning a fantasy football share in a Chinese company that doesn't submit itself to audits. How do you even say that that should be legal to put into fiduciaries' portfolios?
Right. Well, it's even worse than that because the CCP wants to replace the U.S. dollar. And now we see these talks between Saudi Arabia and China accelerating. The Saudis reportedly considering pricing oil sales to China in the yuan rather than the U.S. dollar. This move raising concerns about China's efforts to try to replace the dollar as the global reserve currency, Kyle. What do you think about that?
Yeah. When I look at our foreign policy in the Middle East, I believe we're making an enormous mistake. We have basically turned our back on our longtime, multi-decade ally, Saudi Arabia, and we've gone to Iran. And we are actually considering declassifying the Iranian Republican Guard as a terrorist organization. They are arguably one of the worst terrorist organizations on the planet. We are upsetting the delicate balance of what's going on in the Middle East and turning our back on our ally Saudi Arabia and going to Iran, and that is reordering decades of U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East, and I think it's wrong. And I think that if we announce this Iran deal that you were just talking about being imminent, what that means is in the next 2 years, you're going to have to see Israel's going to have to attack Iran. We are going to guarantee a Middle Eastern war with this Iran deal.
Wow. Such dangerous times, and we don't know any details about the Iran deal either. All we know is that it's apparently imminent, and the Russians are negotiating on our behalf. Kyle, thanks very much. Great to see you this morning, sir. Kyle Bass.